What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. This vlog's a little bit different tonight for a couple reasons. Reason number one, I'm not alone tonight. I have a very special guest with me. Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, Mrs. 7-Card Flush Poker, my wife, Jessica. Number two, I have not dragged her up here to Orange City to sit there and watch me play cards, but rather I have dragged her to a home game to sit there and watch me play cards. That's right, we're doing a home game style today. Big group of friends getting together, 25, 50-cent game. I think the max buy-in is probably going to be capped at 50 or 60 bucks. Got some real characters showing up tonight, and so it should make for a good episode. So, dear, take it away.
Let's get to it.
Let me start off by saying this game is super recreational. I'm the only person that plays with any regularity at a casino or a card room. A couple of my friends used to play a lot back in the day, and some of the people at this table literally never play unless we're having a home game. So there's going to be all sorts of bad bet sizes and stuff tonight. We keep the buy-in at $50 because of how recreational the game is, but it should be a good time. The reason I'm doing this, a couple of my friends want to make the vlog without having to risk a couple $100s. Let me introduce you to the players. In seat one is my very good friend Porter. I've known Porter over 20 years now, and his son was one of my first followers on Instagram. In seat two is my buddy Ricky, aka Dick Richardson, a super action player back in the day. I'm in seat three. My wife joins us in seat four. In seat five is my buddy Riddler. He's a super recreational casual player. In seat six is my good buddy Biggins. We used to run Papa John's store 269 back in the day, and he just recently moved back to town from Pennsylvania. And in seat seven is the host Angie. I've probably known Angie the longest here, though I haven't played cards with her in probably about 15 years. In the first hand of the night, we're on the button and we look down at ace-8 suited. There are three calls from +1, the hijack, and the cutoff, so when the action gets to me, I bump it up to 225. The hijack calls and the cutoff calls, so we're off to a flop three ways. The flop is King 10-3 rainbow, and luckily, the action checks through, so we're off to see a turn. The turn is Jack of clubs, so I've picked up a gut shot. The action checks to me, and I lead out for 350 here. The hijack is the only caller. The cutoff folds, we're off to a river. The river is a 7 of diamonds, and once again, my friend checks it over to me, and I decided to just go ahead and check behind. I don't want to get in too much trouble early for being too aggressive. I show my hand, and he says he missed, and he shows Queen 5 of clubs for the missed flush draw. We're in the big blind now when we look down at King 9 of hearts. The wife and under the gun folds, Riddler and +1 calls, Biggins and the hijack calls as well, Angie and the cutoff also calls. As this is happening, people start bringing up the old $20 face-up hands. Biggins and Ricky used to do these all the time back in the day. It's simple. Put $20 in the middle, you deal a hand face-up, and you deal out the board. So, Ricky and Biggins are getting ready to do this, and as they do, Porter asks if they want another person in. So, now I see $60 of dead money just sitting on the table, and I've got to get a piece of this. So, we're going four ways on this $20 face-up hand. Biggins is dealt ace-9 offsuit, Porter king-jack offsuit, Ricky queen-9 suited, and me ace-king offsuit. The board runs out 10-5-5 on the flop, the 7 of spades on the turn brings in a flush draw, and the brick of all bricks, the deuce of hearts on the river, so I end up winning this $80 hand, but now back to the original hand. Porter on the button puts in the raise to $2, I make the call, Riddler calls, Biggins calls, and Angie calls, we're off to a flop five ways. The flop is 5 ace-6 with 2 spades. I check it over to Riddler and +1 who bets $2. Angie makes the call, Porter folds, and I also fold. They're off to see a turn. The turn is an 8 of clubs. And Riddler takes the lead here and bets out for $5. Angie makes the call, so they're off to see the river. The river is a 3, shouldn't really change anything, and Riddler decides to jam for his last $11. Angie doesn't think too long and she makes the call. Angie flips over ace-7 and Riddler flips over ace-6 for 2 pairs. So Riddler picks up the win here. They are roommates. Wonder if that's going to make it awkward. We're in the cutoff when we look down at 9-7 offsuit. Porter and +1 makes the call. Ricky and the hijack folds. Since it's Biggins big blind, I'm going to go ahead and call and play any 2 cards. Riddler in the small blind calls and Biggins checks. We're off to a flop. The flop is 4-8 jack rainbow. The action checks around to me and I bet $3. Everybody folds. I decide to show the bluff. Such an easy game.
The stone fold bluff.
We're going to pick up the action where Ricky is raised and my wife 3-bets him to $5 from the cutoff. Look at my wife 3-betting. Good for you. Ricky makes the call. They're off to see a flop. The flop is Jack 3-5 with 2 spades. Ricky leads out for $5 and my wife snap calls.
Okay, nice hand.
The turn is an 8 of diamonds. That's going to slow down Ricky and he checks, and my wife bets out $5 this time, and Ricky makes the call. The river is the 8 of hearts, and once again Ricky checks, and my wife gives up and checks. Ricky shows pocket sixes, and my wife, king queen of clubs. She obviously doesn't watch enough of my channel because she should know you never win 3-betting with a hand like that. I like the aggression though. Good job, wife. We're in the cutoff and we look down at king jack of hearts. Angie and under the gun calls, Porter and +1 calls, and it folds around to me, and I bump it up to 225. Riddler in the small blind calls, and Biggins in the big blind folds like a sissy. Under the gun and +1 make the call. We're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is 5-8-4 rainbow. The action checks to me, and I bet out for 650. Riddler folds his hand, but he folds it face up and shows ace king of clubs. Porter ends up making the fold, and I win. We're in the big blind now, and we look down at king 3 of diamonds. Biggins in the hijack calls. It folds around to Porter on the button, who also calls. Ricky calls from the small blind, and I check my action. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 4-9 queen with 2 hearts, and the action checks through, so we'll see a turn for free. The turn is a 3 of hearts. It brings out a 3rd heart, and it gives me bottom pair. It checks to me, and I decide to fire off for 250. Biggins calls from the hijack. The button Porter calls, and Ricky folds. We're off to a river. The river is a 7 of spades, so it doesn't really help me at all. It checks around to Biggins in the hijack, who bets $6, and we both end up making the fold. He wins this hand. We're in the cutoff this time, and we look down at 9-5 of hearts. During the pre-flop action, a dice game actually begins to develop. We used to do this all the time back in the day at our home games. Ricky, me, my wife, Biggins, and Porter all put in $1. You get 3 die, or 3 dice, or whatever. You're trying to roll the lowest score. So I start things off and I roll a 9. That's not going to hold. My wife is up next. She rolls a 9. So it's a push. Biggins is up next. He also rolls a 9. So it's a 3-way push. Porter's up now and he rolls a 9. So 9 is the number to beat. Ricky, can you beat it? Ricky rolls a 7. He wins the dice game. The action folds to Ricky in the hijack, who calls. I call from the cutoff. Riddler in the small blind calls. And the option is on Biggins, who's in the big blind. For whatever reason, he mucks his hand. So we give him hell for it.
You got the big blinds. You just mucked his big blind.
That's like someone straddling and then folding on it.
The flop is ace king 3 with all hearts. So I flopped a flush here. It checks to Ricky in the hijack, who bets out for $1. I raise to $3. The small blind folds, but Ricky calls. We're off to a turn. Turn is a 7 of diamonds. The action checks to me, and I bet out for $5. I let Ricky know what I think of him.
Bullshitting bullshitter.
Ricky makes the call. We're off to the river. The river is an 8 of spades, and once again, the action is checked to me. I lead out on this card for $12, about 2/3 of the pot, and Ricky snap folds. Told you he was a bullshitting bullshitter. We're in +1, and we look down at 3-4 offsuit. The only reason I have this hand in here is because this is the first family pot we've played in about 2.5 hours in. And so Biggins says,
First for you Friday night, we
Why
just
can't
has to
we
make it
be
weekly.
friends?
so we're off to a flop 7 ways. The flop is ace 8-7 with 2 spades. It checks to Porter in the big blind, who leads out for 150. Ricky folds. I make the call. My wife folds. Riddler calls from the cutoff. Biggins folds, and Angie calls from the small blind. We're off to the turn. The turn's an 8 of hearts, so it pairs the board. It checks around to Riddler in the cutoff, who leads for $4 on this card. The big blind Porter calls. I fold, as does Angie. We're off to the river. The river is a 3 of spades, and Riddler jams on this card for $32. Porter's thinking about it, but he ends up folding, and he shows an ace. And so, Riddler shows an ace. So there's a little bit of a discussion about if he should show his other card. Porter reveals he had ace 4, and Riddler had ace 10. So, Riddler wins here. We're straddling from under the gun with king jack offsuit. It folds to Riddler in the cutoff, who calls. Angie calls from the button. Porter in the small blind calls. Ricky calls from the big blind. So I pounce here and I raise to $4.
Liquor butt.
They all make the call. So we're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop is 9-6-7 with 2 hearts, so it's a super connected board. It checks all the way around to Angie on the button, who leads out for $3. Now, as a recreational player, this is where she makes her mistake. She bets $3 into a pot of like $20, so she's priced just about everybody in to call. So, To no one's surprise, we all make the call. We're off to the turn 5 ways. The turn is a deuce of clubs. It shouldn't really change anything. And it checks around to Angie again, who bets $4 here. Another bad bet size. Porter in the small blind makes the call. Knowing Angie had to have connected with this board and I haven't, I can't win without some aggression, so I put in the raise to $16. Riddler folds and it's back on Angie. She looks like she's going to call, but then she hesitates and folds. I show the bluff. I actually feel bad. I don't want to bluff Angie. She's a sweetheart, but there's just way too much money in the pot not to raise on that river. In a hand I have no footage for, once again I'm straddling under the gun with 3-5 offsuit. Riddler, Angie, and Porter all make the call, and when the action's on me, I check, and so we're off to a flop. The flop is king high, and the action checks through. The turn is another king. Porter checks it over to me, and so I decide to go ahead and represent the king, and I bet $7. Riddler calls, Angie folds, but Porter also makes the call, so we're off to the river. The river is a jack. Once again, Porter checks it over to me. I'm not going to win this hand by checking, so I bet $13. Riddler then comes over the top for about $28 total, and Porter folds. There's no way I can make this call here with 5 high, so I also fold. The only reason I'm mentioning this hand is because it took a nice chunk out of my stack, and so now I have some work to do. We had another $20 face-up hands between Biggins, Ricky, and myself, but I accidentally deleted the footage. Ricky had King Jack, Biggins had Queen 9, and I have Ace 7. The flop was a paired board, the turn double paired the board, and the river was a blank, so once again, I win another $20 face-up. I'm straddling from under the gun once again, and I look down at 5-9 offsuit. The wife and +1 makes the call, Riddler and +2 calls. It folds around to the small blind Porter, who also calls. Ricky in the big blind calls, and I check my action. We're off to the flop. The flop is 7 Ace 6 with 2 clubs. The action checks to me, and I bet out for $2. My wife then re-raises me to $4.
What a bitch.
Porter in the small blind calls, Ricky in the big blind calls, so I'm priced in. I have to call here. We're off to a turn. The turn is a king of hearts, so no help to me. It checks over to Riddler and +2, who then jams for around $75 total.
I'm all in. Yeah, you are, you
It folds to me, and I actually want to make the call here to spice things up a little bit, but I do have my wife to act behind me, and it would be for all of my chips, so I have to make the fold here. The wife folds as well, and Riddler wins. We're in the small blind this time, and we look down at Ace 9 offsuit. Riddler and under the gun makes the call, and it folds to Angie and the hijack, who also calls. Porter folds from the cutoff, and Ricky on the button calls. I make the call, and my wife checks. We're off to the flop. The flop is 7-9-8 with 2 hearts, so I flop top 2 here on this super connected board. I'm first to act, and I decide to go ahead and check. My wife leads out for $1. Riddler folds, the hijack Angie calls, and Ricky on the button then raises to $4. So this is starting to get good. This is exactly what I wanted to happen. So when it's on me, I re-raise to $12. My wife gets out of the way. Angie appears to be in agony over this raise.
I'm putting in my notes here, Angie appears to be in agony.
And she makes the fold. Ricky calls, and he calls me a
little slut bot.
Nice, Ricky. The turn is a 3 of diamonds, bringing in a second flush draw. And so on this card, I bet out for $26.50. Ricky once again questions if I have Jack 10, and the rest of the table is giving me absolutely no credit.
Oh, so you have Jack 10?
He wishes he had Jack 10.
$26.50.
What a,
buy the pot.
He did the math and did the percentages.
He's got a
in
fucking
his
pair
head,
of
and
eights.
that's ridiculous.
And he's trying to buy
He's got
the
like
pot.
8
Yeah, that's all
Jack.
good.
He's hoping for that 10 to come up.
Or the heart.
He ain't got no hearts. He's got like clubs.
Ricky ends up making the call. We're off to the river. The river is a 3 of hearts, and this is kind of a gross card because it brings in the front door flush and it pairs the board. But I think aggression is the best way to play this hand against Ricky. I don't see him calling off 65% of his stack on the turn with a flush draw, so I actually think I'm probably ahead here, and so I jam for $36 total. Ricky ends up making the fold, and he folds 7-8 face up for the worst 2 pair, so I gotta give Ricky some credit there. Nice fold. There was a nasty spot where Biggins gets it all in with ace queen against Ricky, who has ace jack. The board runs out. and it ends up being a chop. In this next hand, there's a double blind straddle, so I'm in +1 double straddling with King Jack offsuit. My wife makes the call.
Of course, my wife flats. What a nit.
Riddler calls from the hijack, and it folds around to Ricky and Under the Gun, who calls. So when the action's on me, what do you think I'm gonna do?
Let me see it. Let me see
No,
it
you're not.
again.
You sucker.
Of course, I'm gonna raise. I raised to $8. Only my wife calls.
What a dick.
So we're off to a flop, heads up. The flop is King, King 3 Rainbow, so I've got this board locked up. I check and my wife checks behind. We're off to the turn. The turn is a deuce of hearts, puts 2 hearts out there. I decide I'm gonna go ahead and bet this card, and I bet $4.50. I know, it's a super low size, but it is my wife. I have to share a bed with this woman later. My wife makes the call, we're off to the river. The river is a 4 of hearts, so the backdoor flush gets there. I check, my wife checks behind, I show my hand, and she shows pocket jacks. Tough break, wife. A pretty big hand develops between Biggins and Riddler, where Biggins jams pre-flop for around $27 and Riddler makes the call. Biggins shows his hand, he has ace-king of hearts, so he should be in great shape. The flop is Jack 7-9 Rainbow, and Riddler makes the comment.
And we should just flip our cards, right?
Yeah.
He already did.
My bad. I got trip sevens, bitch.
The turn is a queen of clubs, so Biggins is drawing to a 10 and a 10 only, and the river is a deuce of hearts. Sorry, Biggins, you made the vlog.
Stuck it right in your ass.
Oh, Biggins is making the vlog.
Hey,
In the final hand of the night, we're in the big blind and we look down at Queen 9 offsuit. My wife and Under the Gun calls, Riddler and +1 calls, folds around to Porter on the button who calls, and Ricky raises to $3 from the small blind. I make the call, my wife folds, Riddler calls, and Porter also calls. We're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is 3 Queen 9 with 2 spades, so I flop top 2 here. Ricky checks, and I put in a bet for $5.50. Riddler makes the fold, and then Ricky folds. So I ask which one they want to see, and I end up showing a 9.
Do I have to talk?
I called.
I go to bed at
Oh, shit.
Can I just like zone out?
it's fine.
Because like
So the turn comes a 6 of diamonds, and I sheepishly check it over to Porter, and Porter bets out $15.
Oh, Porter, you're going to make the
it
vlog.
was some bullshit.
Porter's making the vlog.
I mean-
Bitch, I want to make the goddamn
He's
vlog.
about to make the vlog. Don't worry, you made it tonight,
No,
too.
he had to.
I raised to 30 to put them all in. I'm actually short by about $2.50, and I roll over 2 pair. Porter shows 9-10 of diamonds. The river is a 3 of clubs, and so I win this one. So now we've lost 2 players and we're down to 5-handed, so we decide to go ahead and rack up and put an end to this friendly game.
All right, there we go. That was a lot of work, and it's gonna be even more work trying to edit this thing together. God, it's just so distracting with your friends and everybody's talking shit and the alcohol's flying and crazy. So we'll start with the wife. Wife, how'd you do?
I bought in for 50 and I ended up with 44, so not too bad.
$6 loss in 4 hours. You paid $1.50 an hour for that quality entertainment.
It
worth
was entertaining. It was entertaining, so well worth it.
I can't even wrap my head around the math. I bought in for $50. I won $80 in face-up hands. I cashed out for like $165. I tipped the dealer $20, so I think I made like over $200 tonight. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the footage and figure out. So, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. See you next time. So, my wife and I have been driving home. Shut up. My wife and I have been driving home, and the math has not added up right. So we're gonna figure this out. Ready? I bought into the game for $50. We know that.
Okay.
I cashed out for $165, so that's plus $115, right?
Sure.
Then I won $60 profit in the first face-up hand.
You've lost me.
Oh, okay. And $40 in the second, so there's another 100, so we're up 215.
Okay.
I rebought Camper into the game for 40, so we're up 255, and I tipped the dealer 20 bucks, so cashed out for 275, so a profit of $225.
If you say so.
I'm glad we figured that out. Like and subscribe. Watch us. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.